Hello everyone. So before I begin this video, I'd just like to say that I'd like to do more reviews on more of the Battlebots in 2019. So that's what I'm doing in this video. I'm gonna give a honest and non-biased review on Axe Backwards. And if you guys like this, I'll do more reviews on other bots, and I'll just go down in alphabetical order. Before we talk about 2019 Axe Backwards, let's talk about 2018 Axe Backwards. In 2018, it was a drum spinner, pretty reminiscent to Red Rum, if you guys have ever seen that bot on YouTube before. And it did pretty forgettably. It got a 1-3 record, only winning the Ultimo Destructo. And its losses consist of Warhawk, Monsoon, and a Rumble featuring Devil Egg and Basilisk. And while X Backwards probably wasn't the best internal wise, I could say that it had weaponry potential. In 2019, they had a huge remodel and they had the drum much more compact and built for more speed. However, this idea that Kurt Durgin made was very flawed, and it was much worse than the 2018 season of X Backwards. So here's how I'm going to do this review. I'm going to first go off of its wins and how good its wins are, how bad are its losses, and vice versa. And then I'm going to talk about weaponry, and then I'm going to talk about its control, and then I'm going to talk about its potential. So let's start with the record. Axe Backwards started its 2019 season fighting a bot named Mammoth, which is pretty similar to Nightmare in size, but it's more of a flipper/lifter design, and Mammoth wasn't that great of a bot overall. And in the first few seconds of the fight, either bot was really doing anything. Mammoth wasn't really able to get the lifter up on Axe Backwards, and Axe Backwards didn't have a working drum. For reasons that I don't know, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to talk about that more when we go on to weapon and damage. So basically, Axe Backwards did nothing. Mammoth couldn't really do anything, because Axe Backwards was kind of fast. I'll give Axe Backwards credit for that. However, Mammoth just threw Axe Backwards out of the arena and said, "Nope, you thought," and then Axe Backwards lost. In its second fight, Axe Backwards fought Texas Twister, which was already 1-0. However, it was 1-0 to a controversial win against Black Dragon, so it's debatable whether he was 1-0 at the start of this. But that's for another video. Texas Twister is an undercutter slash horizontal spinner design, pretty similar to Valkyries in some cases, except it's much more unstable. Anyway, the fight went off pretty relatively slowly, with neither bot really doing anything to each other. Axe Backwards still in aggressive mode, and Texas Twister not really feeling that much to fight. And whenever Texas Twister hit Axe Backwards, it didn't really do much. It kind of just threw him around a bit. Not throwing Axe Backwards around, but Texas Twister around. Regardless, though, it was still doing damage. And that's basically the whole entire point of the fight until Texas Twister took out Axe Backwards' wheel. I forgot to mention that I'm going to rate each fight from 1 to 10. So Mammoth versus Axe Backwards, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 10. And then Mammoth versus Texas Twister, Axe Backwards versus Texas Twister, that is going to be a 5 out of 10. So right now, Axe Backwards doesn't have a real good entertainment value. X Backwards continued its train wreck of a season by fighting Mammoth. However, in this fight, they opted to get bigger wheels and extension for bigger teeth. Deep Six is, think of your biggest nightmare, but then it likes to kill itself right afterwards. That's Deep Six in a nutshell. It's just a very unstable, but not a very... I won't say it's a bad vertical spinner, but I will say it's a highly flawed vertical spinner. But guys, something X Backwards did made history for them in 2019. Their weapon worked. God, like, don't get me wrong, they still got like their asses beat, but I mean, look at that. Look at that weapon. Oh my god, if it could spin that fast, it could actually do something. Anyway, the fight went pretty basic in X Backwards fashion, just coming off as a kind of 50-50 battle and then getting just its torn ass kicked out. Deep Six threw X Backwards a lot, but X Backwards still kept itself towards aggression, and then X Backwards tire fell off. I'm not sure if the drum base fell off or anything, or if the wheel just fell off, because that's what happened on the other side. I want to give this fight a 7 out of 10, but I'm going to give it a 6 because it was relatively quick. At least X Backwards did something in this fight, which is at least something. As for its fourth fight, I haven't seen it yet because it has not been put up on YouTube. I will say it's a judge's decision in which X Backwards lost to Marvin, and I'm just going to take a wild guess and say that it didn't do well. Now let's talk about X Backwards' weapon as a whole. Now, drums are supposed to be some of the most unstable weaponry in the entire field of robotics. X Backwards was kind of an exception to that rule, where he wasn't really, unstable, because the whole weapon, it was basically a full body spinner. I said in my 2018 worst Battlebots, I said that X Backwards was basically a vertical full body spinner, which is kind of correct. However, considering we don't see a lot of X Backwards weaponry put into a great performance, I can't really say it does anything good. I will give X Backwards credit and say that maybe it wasn't an awful weapon and it could actually do something, but I'm going to hold off on that and just hold that for potential, because we're not talking about potential yet. We're talking about the weapon. And X Backwards weapon just never worked, so I can't really give it a good rating. I'll give it a 2 out of 10, because I can say that I saw it do something against Deep Six, so I mean, at least it worked in one of its fights. If it worked in all of its fights, I'd at least give it a 3 out of 10, but X Backwards hasn't really proven itself with its weapons, so I'm just gonna say no. Now for Control. Guys, I'm not saying it's a full body spinner because the weapon is the only thing really on the bot. It's just weapon and wheels. Mainly, this bot lacks control of some sense, which is a big problem with drum spinners. Because when you look at bots like Minotaur, Drum Spinner's whole point is kind of a control-based fight. If you look at some of Minotaur's amazing fight, you can see it grinding away, drilling into other opponents like they're nothing, and then just sawing them to pieces, and just taking out every part of the robot ever invented in human history. That are what drum spinners do. They need to have the same focus of control and weaponry in order to do what drum spinners do. As for X Backwards, it doesn't do that. X Backwards just kind of exists. It shows no basement of control ever, unless you're fighting a bot that's kind of just low to the ground, like Mammoth for per se. Because Mammoth, he was kind of just low to the ground, which made it easy for Axe Backwards to push, but he still wasn't able to push. And that made it the very, very flawed thing that it is. So, I can't really say that Axe Backwards gets a good rating for control either. It's gonna get a walloping 1 out of 10. By the way, I forgot some categories to mention. Reliability and driving are also something I'm talking about in this, so I'm sorry for forgetting about that. Potential. No, not potential. Driving. Driving for a person requires good driving to win fights. If you look at bots like Bite Force, Tombstone, Minotaur, or Witch Doctor, they needed to win. Yes, they had devastating weapons, but they're also because of how good the drivers are. If you look at bots like, I'm just gonna say it out loud, Captain Shredderator, a bot that could be good, but the driver's just awful, or Gigabyte, because man, his driver just sucked. You can't really see they aren't that good. X Backwards kind of has an okay driver. Team captain and driver could be different things. Like, I'm not talking about how critically insane the team captain is, even though he's the same driver as the team captain for X Backwards. Because I'm not sure what person looks at an X Backwards design and says, hey, I'm gonna win a championship with this thing. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about driving, and Axe Backwards kind of has an okay driver. I'll give him credit that this driver doesn't suck. You can tell that he's trying to find a weak point, but is just not really getting a hang of it because his weapon sucks. He doesn't have control, so he can't really do anything except drive around like a drunken sophomore. So that's all I can really say. I'll give Axe Backwards a 5 out of 10 for driving. Reliability. Oh boy, this is going to be a fun one. So, what makes a bot reliable? Well, good weaponry. Actually, you don't even need good weaponry. You just need your weapon to work correctly. Hell, even if you don't have a weapon, you just need the bot to work correctly. And Axe Backwards doesn't really work correctly. Just like in 2018 design, it just wasn't reliable at all in Battlebots. And I can't say that Axe Backwards is just a reliable machine in this year. I'd say that it's slightly less reliable in this year than 2018. If I was to grade reliability for Axe Backwards in 2018, I'd give it a 4 or 5 out of 10. In this one, I'd give it a good 2 out of 10, because its weapon never worked. It didn't have eternal problems, so I guess I could give it a 3 out of 10, but for what I call a vertical full body spinner, yes, you can quote me on that, I'm just going to call Axe Backwards a vertical full body spinner, you need the thing that is what you're meant to be, and which is just go all weapon to work. If your weapon doesn't work, then you're going to die, which is why Axe Backwards in reliability gets a 3 out of 10. Potential. Our final category. So, I know I have asked a lot of my friends about this, and they've said that Axe Backwards has a lot of potential and just needs a working weapon. I really disagree on that. Axe Backwards just doesn't work. Okay, I'm sure you guys are getting annoyed for me calling it a vertical full body spinner, so I'm just gonna call it a drum spinner. For a drum spinner to work correctly, you need to have some form of control. Anything would work. This is the problem Yeti had this year. He had no form of control, so he was just in a very uh, unstable machine, so he wasn't able to do much. X backwards isn't unstable, but it just doesn't work in Battlebots. It can't do much. And I know what you're thinking. It beat Ultimo Destructo. It should have won the judge's decision in the Rumble. To that I say, yeah, but there has to come a point where this bot won't be able to do much. And come on, even if it did win the Rumble, all of its wins would be against D/F tier robots, and that's the best. I think that's the best Axe Backwards can be. For potential, I'd give Axe Backwards a 2 out of 10. So for the full bot overall, let me just give you what I think about Axe Backwards and what the rating for Axe Backwards this year should be. Axe Backwards deserves to be on my top 5 worst 2019 BattleBots list, and I put him there. Axe Backwards just doesn't work properly. It can't. It's just not how the design could work. Axe Backwards is not a very good robot, and it just shows in its fights. It doesn't even show fun fights. I mean, at least with Bronco, yes, it was an 0-4 bot, but at least it posed entertaining fights. Hell, you could even say that about Captain Shredderator this year. It had a good, kind of entertaining fights against Wanhu, Black Dragon, kinda Blacksmith, and Witch Doctor. It had entertaining losses, but Axe Backwards, you just see that it's just a severe nothingness. It's just dull. I'm not gonna give this bot a 1 out of 10 because I feel that it could be a lot worse and it could just die from one hit. Bombshell. So I'm going to give this spot a 2 out of 10 instead of a 1 out of 10. But trust me, this is a 2 that you could tango with.